Hey, it's me. We are actually in my dining space right now. I really wanted to switch the scenery up, get things ready for the holidays. So we've got the Christmas tree going in the background. I'm really excited about the recipes for today's video because they're just really comforting and wholesome and great to make this winter season. So I've got a really nice rustic beef stew going. We've got this is a really interesting recipe. It's a stuffed chicken meatball sub recipe. I'm not the biggest fan of meatballs or meatball subs, but this is chicken meatballs and they are phenomenal. So I really just wanted to share this recipe with you all. I just thought it was just really filling when I made it. I could only eat one and I was just done for. And then the last recipe is just a classic lasagna recipe. So you guys know the drill. We're just gonna go ahead and get started, and I'm gonna talk you through how I made each recipe. Let's start out with the beef stew. This is a classic winter dish, great to whip up on a super cold day. So I'm sauteing half of a chopped onion in my Dutch oven. That's what I'm going to be using to cook the entire beef stew. Then when they're about halfway cooked, I'm going to take a small pad of butter and melt that down. Just add a little bit of fat to the bottom of the pan. My Dutch oven is well loved, as you can see, so I do have to add something to, prevent the ingredients from sticking. So next up is the meat. This is just stew meat. You can get this at pretty much any grocery store, but if your grocery store doesn't have it, I think it's chuck meat. So I think you're able to just buy maybe like a chuck roast and cut it up into pieces. I'm not the best at identifying my meat, so go to your butcher if you don't have stew meat already readily available at your grocery store. So moving on, I'm just seasoning the meat. I'll have all of the seasonings I use down below: garlic powder, salt, pepper, ground mustard, things of that nature. You can honestly use whatever you have in your cupboard. So now I'm just gonna let that cook up on really, really low heat. You don't want it to cook all the way through. I'm just gonna let it kind of hang out while I work on my vegetables, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'm gonna peel and chop about 4 large carrots and 4 to 6 large potatoes. You can adjust this accordingly to how much you want to make. This makes about 6 big servings. So after I've got my vegetables peeled, I'm going to start chopping. I've chopped up a really small stalk of celery. I don't like a lot of celery in my beef stew, so I just have a really small stalk. And then I like to chop my vegetables pretty big. If you want just a really rustic, hearty beef stew, chop them really big. If not, maybe if you're making this for kids, you might need to chop a little bit smaller. But as for me, I like the vegetables to be chopped pretty big. So now we're gonna make our way back to the beef. And like I said, you don't want it to cook all the way through. And you're gonna turn the heat down as low as it'll go, and you're gonna add in about a cup of red wine. This is just super cheap Cabernet Sauvignon. You just wanna use a wine that's not too sweet, just a good standard red cooking wine. It doesn't have to be expensive. This one is from Publix. It's the Woodbridge brand. So after you add in the wine, you're going to see that it reduces down really quickly. This makes a great base for your roux. So next up, you're going to add in about 2 big tablespoons of flour. And it's gonna start looking really gross really fast. This part grosses me out so bad. I hate the way this looks, but it's kind of where the magic happens. So after you get your flour cooked in for a couple of minutes, you're gonna add in your beef stock. So I just use a big family size box of Swanson beef stock or whatever beef stock I have in my pantry. If you have homemade beef stock, that would be even more amazing. I plan on trying this recipe with homemade beef stock. I don't think I ever have, but box will work for now. And then I also like to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. That is what we call it here in the South. I know it's debatable everywhere else, but that's what we call it here. And basically after that, I just toss in all of the vegetables and let this simmer on low for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Make sure you stir it periodically so nothing sticks. And then you're gonna have, in a couple of hours, a nice big pot of beef stew. And this is what it should look like. Amazing. I love this recipe. This is my favorite recipe that I've done thus far. So I had to share it with you all. This is also slightly a new recipe. This is stuffed chicken meatball subs. So we're gonna be using ground chicken for this. You can actually use ground pork, ground turkey, whatever you have. I just wanted to use chicken because I normally do this with pork or turkey. So you need about 2 pounds of ground chicken, and then you're going to crack just 1 egg into your ground chicken mixture. Basically, we're just gonna make a big mixture right here. There I put in about half of an onion chopped and also about 1 garlic clove chopped. Next, I'm adding in a mixture of seasonings. Again, I'll have all of the seasonings that I use down below. Then you're going to toss in about a full cup of breadcrumbs. I like to use the Italian breadcrumbs. I just think they have a little bit more flavor. And then I'm adding in a little bit of basil paste. I didn't have fresh basil on hand, so I keep the basil paste in my refrigerator. Then I'm going to add a little bit of Parmesan, and you're just going to mix this up to create your meatball mixture. It's gross. I hate this part. I hate using my hands to cook with just in general, honestly, but especially with meat. So you're just going to make sure everything's combined really nicely, and then after everything's combined, you're going to form your stuffed meatball. So get a little bit of meat in your hand, and you're going to pre-chop some cheese cubes. These are Vermont cheddar. You can use mozzarella, whatever you have on hand. Stuff it into your meatball and just roll it out. Make sure all of the edges are sealed and just repeat the process. I think that this is just a fun take on regular meatballs. When you have, like, come on, when you have cheese stuffed into something, it's always better. So yeah, just use whatever cheese you have on hand. You can actually use the pre-made cubes, like the ones that you can get on party platters if you don't want to cut out the cheese. But I actually just buy blocks of cheese and I kind of just cut them into squares myself. So after you get all of your meatballs formed, you want to just sear them and get a nice crust on them before you finish cooking them. So I'm taking a nice big pan here and just adding a little drizzle of olive oil for some extra fat. The chicken is super lean, so I would definitely recommend adding some oil in. And what you want to do here is just brown them. You don't want to cook them all the way through. So just make sure they get some nice brown tops on them, and they don't have to be cooked all the way through the center. They should just look something like this once you're done. So I like to finish these off in the crock pot. If you don't have time for that, you can finish them off in a regular pot. But what I do is I just take some marinara and layer the bottom of the pot with it, and I start to stack the meatballs. So I'll put 1 layer of meatballs down and then do a little bit more marinara, add my other layer of meatballs, and then just finish them off with a little bit more marinara. Again, if you have time for homemade marinara, more power to you, because homemade is always better, but I just kind of cheated on this. Then I top the meatballs with a little bit of Parmesan, let them cook in the crock pot for a couple of hours, and just take a big sub roll and stuff it with the meatballs, and you're basically done. I top the meatball subs with a little bit of grated parm, and that's it. Yum, delish, super filling. Last recipe is a classic lasagna. So I'm starting out by sauteing about 1 chopped garlic clove and half of a chopped onion. I'm also going to add in some of that basil paste. 10 out of 10 if you have fresh herbs on hand, use those. I just didn't. Then for my meat, I'm using mild Italian sausage, about 1 pound, and then I'm also adding another pound of just regular lean ground beef. This is obviously going to be for the meat sauce. You can use hot Italian sausage if you like it hotter. Use whatever you prefer for meat sauces. So I'm gonna let the lasagna noodles cook in the background and then finish up on the meat sauce. After your meat has browned, you wanna add 1 small can of tomato paste. And then I like to add about a cup of red wine to my meat sauce. Again, I just really like that flavor. I think it's unique and bold and just definitely different from a lot of lasagna recipes. So after that's mixed in, I add some Hunt's crushed tomatoes. I actually blend these up in a food processor just because I don't like the chunkiness of tomatoes in my lasagna. but that's what I use to finish off the meat sauce. Now we're gonna make the ricotta mixture. So I've added a really big tub of ricotta, 1 egg, about a full cup of chopped spinach, some grated Parmesan or shredded Parmesan, and then I seasoned it with some garlic powder, salt, and pepper, mixed it up, and that's how I created the ricotta cheese mixture. So it looks lovely, I know. After that's done, you're just going to start, obviously, the layering process. So I put my meat mixture down first, and then I layer my lasagna noodles, and then I take the ricotta mixture and I just repeat that over and over again until I'm basically out of my ingredients. I know some people like to double layer. They like to layer the meat with the ricotta mixture, but there's really no rhyme or reason to it. It's all gonna cook up the same in the end. So yeah, just layering. Oh, I also like to add some Parmesan cheese to the meat while I'm layering it. So that's what you see me doing there. So on my final layer, I like to grate some fresh Parmesan cheese over the top, and then you're going to bake that in the oven on about 375, 400 degrees for about 45 minutes, or until everything is bubbly and brown. Depending on your oven, sometimes it could take longer, sometimes it could take less. Just keep an eye on it. And then you will have, in about 45 minutes to an hour, a massive big pan of nice layered lasagna, and it should look something like this. Delicious. I mean, what can you say? Like, this is wholesome comfort food at its finest. All right, guys, so those were my 3 comfort food recipes. I hope you enjoyed. If you make any of these recipes at home, definitely send me pictures on Instagram. I've already been getting so many pictures, and I just think it's really cool to see the recreations. So if you make any of the recipes, or if you've made any of them from my past videos, send me a picture or just tag me in the photo. I would love to see them. So if you have any questions about today's video, definitely leave them down below and I will try to get back with you. And other than that, I hope you all have a Merry Christmas or whatever it is you celebrate, and I'll see y'all in my next video. Bye.